Charles, we have an awesome guest today.
You do indeed.
Somebody that Crowdsource the Truth viewers love. It's Lee Stranahan. Hello, Lee. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Very well.
Awesome.
You're looking well, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Lee, we've invited you
I
here.
wasn't showing too much cleavage, so I had to.
Oh, yeah. That's good. You got kind of a Han Solo thing going today. It looks good. We invited you on the show today, Lee, because we're going to be talking about how to succeed at fraud without really trying. And we want to talk about that guy who is the CEO of Chobani.
Ulukaya.
Ulukaya.
Yeah. So I would also, by the way, I would just caution you. He's very litigious. So I would watch the term fraud. By all disclaimers, because I speak from experience. When I was reporting on Chobani for Breitbart back in, I think, 2013, right around that point, I went up to Twin Falls and spent some time there. And my reporting was completely accurate. But they brought another reporter on from Breitbart, and her reporting was not completely accurate. And so Chobani immediately sued Breitbart, and Breitbart shut down all the reporting, including mine. So I'm just saying, watch out. And we'll talk about, I think, why. He's very embedded in the New York legal and financial and, government community. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah. Sure. And we're not alleging that he's engaged in fraud. We're basically saying that the Clintons and Obama and all of them are engaged in fraud. So they can sue us if they want.
Yeah. And at the top, sorry, Lee, at the top of the show, it's important to draw a distinction between corporate fraud, which is very difficult to prove. You have to prove that Latin term is scienter, or however you pronounce it. You have to prove that you intentionally, knowingly committed fraud, and you have to show a loss,
right?
That you suffered a loss, or that somebody suffered a loss. In charity fraud, you don't have to do that. And so the thrust of this presentation is more to do with his activities with his charity, the Tent organization, than it is to get into his corporation issues. Although since the time that you may have been reporting, I came up with the one and only law, Ortel's first law. You punch somebody's name in with the word Clinton and fraud, and you look and see what happens in Google. And when you do that on this person, it's extensive. I mean, there are a lot of allegations that may have happened after you started reporting about this guy.
So, but I'll bet they fit in with the pattern I found, because I'll say this, he's a very interesting guy. He's a very interesting guy, so interesting that if I say he seems straight out of Central Casting, does that make sense, Charles, from what you know about him?
Well, I was just saying to Jason, and I'm being lighthearted here, that on the poster, he put the guy's picture there, and I thought it was Borat, because he looks very similar to Borat in this.
Got that look, but his biography, the first thing when I went up there, let me explain how I got into the story. So the editors of Breitbart, there'd been a sexual assault on a girl in Twin Falls, Idaho, by 3 refugee boys. Okay. And the police had immediately done stuff to cover up and corrupt the case against the girl, the victim. The girl was like 5. And the boys were, I think one was like around that age, around 6, one was around 8, but one was 14. And so, when the New York Times reported on this, they conveniently left out the 14-year-old and tried to make it seem like this was just like, a kid's thing. It was not. And he was caught by a woman who lived at the apartment complex. I mean, an eyewitness. A woman came to the laundry room, and the 14-year-old was photographing with a camera. Okay. He was videotaping and directing. And he was directing the kids. And the woman said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Nothing." And so she went up, and the girl was naked, covered in urine.
Wow.
Again, and she saw this, and immediately the boy's brother came over. By the way, the parents and the police were called. So, and the boy's brother came over, took the camera and smashed her with a rock. That's not suspicious. But anyway, they covered it up. But it was being reported at the time as a cover-up about Muslim issues. And I was open to that as possible. And it kind of was. But the cover-up that was going on, when I looked into it, I saw Hamdi Ulukaya not chiefly as a Muslim, but chiefly as a globalist. And I said that at the time. I said on Barbary News Radio with Steve Bannon, I said, this is a globalist issue. And Bannon was open to that. In fact, was very open to it. And so his origin story, Hamdi Ulukaya's, is he's from Turkey. He's a Kurd. He's Kurdish, which is somewhat it's certainly a cultural distinction. And the Kurds are very active politically. Like for instance, in Syria, the Kurds allied with the United States in order to try to get a Kurdish homeland, which is part of Syria, right? They want to declare part of Syria a Kurdish homeland. And so they hooked up with the U.S. But then when the U.S. was doing something, I think with, I forget who it was, but another ally, they betrayed the Kurds completely. So but again, sort of mercenary. I don't mean that in a negative way, but just, for their survival, they see they're afraid of mercenary. So Ulukaya is out of that. And in Turkey, he did what a lot of people who are the child of feta cheese manufacturers, which he is. His father makes feta cheese. He went into politics. At college, he studied political science. Now, my guess, this is conjecture, is that someone from a 3-letter agency met this guy over there. It's, it makes sense to me. They recruit out of colleges. I'm not being conspiratorial. I'm saying this is how they do it, right? So they found this guy, they met him. Then he came over to the United States. He just happened to, through small business loans and a variety of state programs, was able to buy a yogurt factory that had been abandoned by Kraft, the big food company in upstate New York. So he got this factory. He bought it for a song, basically. And he got the surrounding, town, because the jobs have been, were gone. They wanted to promote jobs, right? So he got them to provide all kinds of breaks. And this is a pattern he would do all over and over in his career. When he went into Twin Falls, Idaho, for instance, he got huge tax breaks. He didn't have to pay taxes. And they did also, so I learned more about Greek yogurt than I ever want to know. But one thing, not to go into too much detail, but when you make Greek yogurt, unlike regular yogurt, you get 3 parts waste to every 1 part you produce. Yeah.
Holy cow.
So I'll say that again. If you produce a ton of yogurt, you get 3 tons of waste. And by the way, that waste is milk waste. And the problem with milk waste is what do you do with it? And out by Twin Falls, Idaho, I drove out there and took some amazing drone footage because you do not want to get close to this thing. It's literally the worst thing I've ever smelled in my life. It's a 5-acre pond of milk waste.
Ugh. Rotting.
Curdling in the sun for months. It's literally 5 acres. I had to have a drone to get near it because it's so horrible. I almost threw up. Really bad. So, and by the way, imagine if you had property downwind from that. You bought a vacation home or something in Idaho. Well, there are people who suffered from that. And this yogurt factory caused a lot of problems. But the other problem with all milk waste is most cities' sewage systems can't handle it. Okay? So Twin Falls had to do an upgrade to their sewage system to handle the milk waste. That cost millions of dollars. Guess who paid for it? Not Hamdi Ulukaya, right? And in fact, a Twin Falls official told me off record at one meeting, he said, look, we know that when we negotiated this contract, we got had. We know that. But it was our first time dealing with a company at that level. He said, with subsequent companies, because they got a few others, I forget, the Cliff Bar people is another one. So when they came in, we were smarter, we were wiser. We made better deals, and we're improving all the time. And I thought it was a very honest thing to say. So he was admitting he was not exactly guilty about it, but it's understandable to me. They got had basically, and Hamdi Ulukay's organization, and I'll say that because I think someone's obviously behind him. I will say this: the marketing in Chobani is brilliant, and I think part of the marketing in Chobani is Hamdi Ulukaya. He's a product of whoever's running marketing for this enterprise, because now I sent you the thing, Jason. You have those videos I sent you?
I do, but you know what, Lee? I want to, we'll play those when we make our way over to the sponsor exclusive segment. In about 15 minutes, people are going to be able to join us on patreon.com/Stranahan and also on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. We'll get into that because people love to strike the videos when we play anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right. So the point I'm trying to make, though, is, and this will, I made a comment parenthetically, sort of saying it's a Muslim thing with him, but not really. I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. So the thing I noticed is whenever the Democrats had a cause, like the cause of the quarter, I'll call it, you know what I mean? They develop a message. Like at one point, the Democrats' message was, we really need, it was gay rights. They're really pushing the gay issue. Remember pushing gay marriage? And
Yeah.
they were at that point where it's just being pushed. So who came out for gay marriage? Chobani. And that's what we're going to play. But every time they had any message, if their message was immigration, and the reason I said the Muslim thing is one message that the Democrats were pushing was don't fall for any right-wing propaganda about Muslim terror. That's right-wing nut jobs. And I saw it because I was reporting on that stuff. I'm like, no, it's factual. There are groups that are Muslim explicitly and promote terrorism. Here you go. And oh no, you can't say that. That's offensive to Muslims. It was just sort of that whole woke thing, kind of. And so he fit into that messaging at some point. What I'm saying is that coincided with the message, but his main thing is not I'm Muslim, therefore, because promoting gay rights is not exactly a Muslim position. So he's a globalist first. And when I said that, he had either just or was just about to appear at the WEF. So he's very explicitly a globalist. And if you look at, if you're running a fictional company, okay, and want to appeal to a certain kind of East Coast, and California, the coastal liberal elite, Volvo driving, latte drinking, I like it lattes. Okay, I've lived in LA and New York, and so I get that type. I'm not even insulting. I'm just saying it's a certain type, the Whole Foods type, right? Hamdi Ulukaya fits into all that. He's an ethical business guy. He pays his employees $15 an hour, exactly that, when they're pushing that as minimum wage, right? So every message they have about, he didn't build this alone. He built it with a community, all that, the sort of, pukey, Oprah liberal type stuff. He fits exactly in with that. Like I say he's straight out of Central Casting.
Yeah.
Well, one other thing I could say in this open forum, the thrust of our presentation is going to be in the paid forum is going to be on the charitable aspects. But today's an interesting day to toot my own horn a little bit, because today is the day that GE finally ceased to exist and was broken into 3 pieces. And I called that very early. Another thing I'm familiar with, I have a friend who owned a beer company. His family owned the largest German beer company. And as a young man, he was on the board of the family company, sent to America to build the brand in America. And despite the fact that they had billions of dollars behind him, and it was the #1 beer in Germany where they drink beer, he couldn't do it. And it's not because he's incompetent. It's because these supermarkets zealously guard shelf space. And the notion that this guy would go, that Kraft would say, we can't do this. Kraft, with all its money and its tremendous ability to command shelf space, and this guy would come in and be successful. I call bullshit on it. There's more to this story.
Exactly right, yeah. He was immediately successful. In fact, part of his story is how quick and amazing his success was. But I'll give you, for instance, my reporting at Breitbart that got killed because I had everything for the story. So one of the ways Chobani makes money, okay, so let's think about this. If you want to make money selling yogurt, what do? You could say, well, sell more, right? Okay. Yeah. Well, one way to do that is to sell truckloads to schools, right? If you can have an industrial buyer at the government, it's a consistent buyer every week will buy for every school truckload.
School lunch.
Right. Yeah. How can you do that? Mandated by law. And so they did that. They passed a law federally that Greek-style yogurt, which Chobani was the leading manufacturer, but they didn't mention Chobani anywhere. So but it said Greek-style yogurt is now a protein. They reclassified it. It's now a protein. So you can serve your kids, hamburger, hot dog, or yogurt. Now, by the way, I'm not a yogurt in general, but but I understand that Greek yogurt is an acquired taste. I understand it's more sour than American yogurt.
Kids are not going to like that. Kids like yogurt with fruit and sugar.
No, that's exactly right. So people, and I had all this, I had interviews, everything was documented. It was amazing. This yogurt would be trucked into schools, okay? Then by law, they had to give it out. They didn't just have to buy it. They had to put the yogurt on the kid's tray. So one woman told me those bins that they have at cafeterias, there would be bins full yogurt that the kids didn't even touch. They had to put it on a tray by law. Okay. Again, Jason, imagine if we could get them to mandate to listen to your podcast.
Exactly.
I predict your audience would grow.
Yeah.
Quickly. And so, so I'm just saying this is the way they made a lot of money. And it has, people think it's like one of those things that kind of sounds good. So no one's going to object to it. Okay, we'll give the kids, but practically it was a disaster. And when I think about the poor people that could have been fed with that yogurt, I mean, if they wanted, but it was literally being thrown away. That's part of the tragedy. Yeah. Again.
But Lee, even before that point, in order to convince the government to have the schools buy or give out this yogurt, it would have had to have some kind of commercial success.
Right.
I mean, how did they first break into these supermarkets? And I don't think we know the whole story to that yet.
Well, the story they tell, and again, your BS meter will go off. This sounds like marketing. The story they tell is he sold the first thing into a small store in Long Island, and people liked it so much. There was such good word of mouth that soon people are clamoring for it all over.
This is not an episode of Seinfeld. I mean, that's ridiculous.
But also, these aren't donuts, right? We see these places where people are lining up, and it's because they've invented some new, butter-filled croissant donut with bacon and people like that. But I'm with you guys. I mean, I like yogurt, but I don't think people are lining up for it.
I have never knowingly eaten yogurt.
What I've noticed is when brands become popular, like Starbucks, which is kind of
crap,
semi-woke, but when they go popular, it's over things like, remember what made Starbucks? I remember life before Starbucks and when it hit. It's Frappuccinos. It's basically milkshakes. It's the least healthy thing. Caffeinated milkshakes.
Right. Exactly.
And that's always the way they make their money. Every fast food, it's a food they don't want to brag about. They don't want to say
McRib.
Right. Exactly right.
Nobody's lining up for the yogurt. That just doesn't make any sense at all.
Going to McDonald's to get that salad, the walnut salad. I don't think so.
Right. No, it doesn't make sense at all. I agree with both of you guys.
But again, I say it's brilliant marketing. And so when I look at this marketing, I do see an unseen hand. I see someone directing something. Does that make sense at all, or am I crazy
Yeah.
paranoid?
No, I agree.
It could be both.
All I would say is, and again, this is ancient history, but when I began my career, I spent the first 11 years working for a firm that had many large consumer products companies as clients, Heinz, Pepsi, on and on and on, and RJ Reynolds. And that's just not the way it works. I mean, you have these big operations that have multiple brands, and they can direct immense firepower, meaning spending, to take out a rising competitor, to box against an equal competitor or whatever. And, brands that go from nothing. I mean, I would buy if it went from nothing to $1 billion in 20 years. Right. But I don't buy, nothing to whatever he went in 3 or 4 or 5 years. I don't buy that. There's more to that story. We don't yet know what it is. It's probably something to do with no-bid contracts and government influence and whatever. And it could be quite nefarious. But that, indeed, is not even the interesting, to me, part of the story. The really interesting thing is what this guy is doing through his foundation to attract people across our southern border. And I think that's grossly in violation of the law, as we will discuss in the paid section.
And he's very much embedded in that whole world, was what was interesting to me. The other thing I should mention is he's a member, he was anyway, a member of the Fed up in New York. The Federal Reserve of the state of New, I don't know how the Fed works.
Yeah.
But the New York section. You don't get that gig either without certain nefarious connections, I'll put it like that.
Well, I would say you don't get that kind of a position quickly.
Right.
Exactly. Without some sort of a push. I mean, it happens that another friend of mine is the chairman of the Fed, the whole Fed, Jay Powell. And he worked patiently his whole life to get into that position. You won't like some of the things he did, Jason, partner at Carlyle Group. But, this guy's resume to me is very thin and should be subjected to a lot of scrutiny, but he's on the committee that would subject us to scrutiny.
Right. Homeland Security. He was recently named, I think in 2022. Yeah. March 21st, 2022. He's named as a member of the Homeland Security Advisory Council, appointed by Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas in March 2022. Mr. Hamdi Ulukaya is the founder and CEO of Chobani, one of the fastest growing food companies in the last decade, and a pioneer in making better food that's delicious. I love it when the Homeland Security Department tells us it's delicious. That's a little bit subjective for a law enforcement thing.
Jingles, Jason? Are this girls singing this jingle?
They should. But I mean, what does making yogurt have to do with being on the Homeland? I mean, this alone is enough to say, look, oh shit, this is Noah Bookbinder, that asshole who did the whole lawsuit to get Trump off the ballot with Crew. So this is all screwy right here. Who we got here?
Jamie Gorelick, I think, is on this.
Yeah, she's the one coordinating this whole thing. And here's Chertoff.
It was also
this is not good.
Also, very clearly,
that's Jamie.
During the 2016 election, he was doing coordinated tweets with Hillary Clinton. Like she announced something at 10:52, and at 11, Hamdi Ulukaya had a tweet exactly on message that had obviously been crafted, if that makes sense. With all the links and everything, go here, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Perfect timing. He's had a big audience,
Unbelievable. Well, listen, guys, we are at the end here of our intro segment. We're going to carry on right now in the First Amendment Forum. People can join us on patreon.com/Stranahan. And we're also going to be on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com, and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Join us over there. Become a sponsor if you're not already. People in the comments are feeling like this is a CIA cutout. I mean, it's a little weird to be making yogurt and being involved in Homeland Security, I have to say. But join us in the First Amendment Forum. Become a sponsor. If you didn't see yesterday's show about P. Diddy, holy cow, forensic evidence out the wazoo. We'll be right back in 5 minutes. Stay with us. Yeah, literally, exactly.
Yeah.
See everybody in 5.